Salutations and welcome back to my second Mushoku Tensei video where I will be explaining why episode 2 of Mushoku Tensei is absolute peak. First off, a very quick update, I bought a new microphone, so I will no longer be sounding like this, instead I will be sounding like this. I hope it's a little bit better than before. Anyways, let's get started with the second episode of Mushoku Tensei, and golly, we are off to a very strong start. This scene in the anime is actually very fast. If you don't have a keen eye, you're not going to notice a lot of what's happening. We transfer from an empty chair in a funeral to Rudy's pre-reincarnation jerking it. Oh, and what's this? We have exclusive footage never seen before of what he was jerking it to. So let's watch this clip.
ゴシゴシこすっちゃダメだからね。すすぎはきちんと。この長さなら5分は欲しいかな。5分？嘘だろ。やっと終わった。それから毛先にじっくりトリートメントを。
Wow, bind with the amazing cross promotion. Who would have thought? Only mine. I guess Rudy's was a pretty based individual. Anyways, I kid. In reality, it said that he, what he was jerking it to is a bit debatable, but I think the majority likes to agree that it's lolly hentai. And when I was watching the anime, that's pretty much all I got. I didn't really understand much of what was happening here. I thought, hey, okay, he missed out on the funeral to jerk off, and some loan sharks maybe kicked him out of his house because he hadn't paid rent because he doesn't work. I don't know. Now, visual novel readers are probably nodding their head and, hissing at me being like, wow, come on, man, it's so obvious. But let me explain a little bit of my wisdom that I have acquired by doing a bit of research. So apparently the people that passed away were actually Rudy's parents. So he skipped out on the funeral to jerk it at home. Then his Oni-chans and younger sister came back to forcibly evict them from the house. Not only that, they crushed his computer. Now, I want to clarify, I am not a light novel reader. I'm not spoiled anything beyond what the anime has covered, but this scene had me very curious, so I did a little bit more research. Well, this scene tries to paint Rudy as in a very, very bad light, and I don't want to say that he's a good person or anything, but I do think the anime makes him look a little bit worse than he's supposed to be. While in the anime you see him lunge at his brothers as soon as they come into the house, he actually only does that in the light novel as soon as they break his computer, because that was his life. You don't understand. Rudy's has been in his room for years, never coming out, with his only connection to anything being his computer. So at that point, crushing that was like crushing a part of him. Also, the reason he did not go to the funeral wasn't because he was necessarily angry at his parents or anything. No, it's just because he was afraid of going outside. With the trauma he built up from the bullying, he was afraid of taking a single step outside of his house regardless of the reason. Now, yeah, sure, you could say if Rudy was a better person, he could have overcome these weaknesses, but he just wasn't that strong, unfortunately. One more thing that I think is very important to notice is that when he gets kicked out of his house, his first thought is actually, how can I get a job? That's right, this shonen who had zero life experience went outside and her first thought is, okay, I need to get a job. That to me shows me that if Rudius is pushed, I believe that he could still do great things. Sometimes you just need to be a little bit hard on him. But hey, that last part there is just my interpretation of the story. Feel free to disagree with me. And this, of course, leads to him sacrificing himself to save the teens. When we come back to our current world, we see Rudius is practicing his magic. Again, something Rudius is good at is repeated stuff. His original life, he spent all day inside on his computer. Then once again he spent countless time casting water balls to exceed his mana, and now making the earth figures. He did it for so long he actually passed out doing it. Now we get a pretty interesting scene. Rudy's parents seem to be making a sibling. We catch Roxy outside their door, hearing him and stimulating herself. This expands on the idea that Roxy is not a perfect character by any stretch of the imagination. This, plus insulting Rudy's parents earlier, shows that she is not this ideal perfect waifu, which in turn for me personally makes her an ideal perfect waifu. This is one thing I really like about Mushoku Tensei, is that it goes out of its way to show that these characters are not perfect. While many other shows will only show bad characters, quote unquote, in a negative light, Mushoku Tensei is not afraid of showing its leading cast in a negative light, showing that just because you have some flaws, it does not mean that you cannot be a good person. And to further demonstrate that, while Rudius is getting taught history, he takes a quick peek under Roxy's skirt. It's actually not a quick peek, he's just staring down there the whole time. Once again, Mushoku Tensei Tensei wastes no time here. Well, we are looking at fan service, for lack of a better word, actually treated to a good bit of history. So apparently magic was originally founded by the demon kind. Humans simply replicated what they saw, and that is how modern magic started. Something I want to talk about for a quick second is that fan service in Mushoku Tensei is not always meaningful. If anything, it's a bit forced at times. Now this personally does not bother me, but if it does, this series is going to be hard to stomach from time to time. Studio Bind literally right after this went to go make Onimai, which is, if you think Mushoku Tensei has a lot of problematic fan service, you should definitely stay away from that. But yeah, generally in anime, fan service is used to keep you engaged, so that way the story can teach you history while showing you fan service on the screen. Back to the episode at hand, something that gets introduced here is the Superb. Roxy talks about green-haired demons who are feared across the world. Apparently here, how we use the boogeyman, they use the Superb. If you don't go to sleep early, your parents will tell you the Superb's gonna eat you. Another seed planted early on. The key point here being that Superb have green hair and a red gem on their forehead. Now the classic thing happens where a kid starts crushing on their guardian. Now of course here the job of the adult is to obviously turn down the advances, which Roxy does as any respectable adult would.
There's actually another scene right after that.
Another scene? Well, I don't remember this. Let's see what happens.
I see. Well, if you still feel that way 10 years from now, feel free to say that again.
What? Ma'am, that's a child you're talking to. You're a predator. No! That was mostly a joke. Now, very quickly, we get a scene that shows us that Rudy's not that good with the sword, but he is good with the magic, of course. Now, here we get a very important scene to Rudy's character. He sees kids playing outside and imagines them smirking at him, making fun of him and taking pictures of him, as if they're going to mock him with him. And then we see a scene of his original life where he was crucified and taken pictures of. These pictures of him naked were spread across the entire school. This was the incident that started his shut in life. This is followed by Roxy saying that he should go to a school. He'd rather stay with Roxy forever. Now this right here shows why Rudius was stuck in his past life. He is one to lie to not just himself but others, to convince himself he is actually happier where he is. Why go to school when you can be with Roxy forever? Why go to school when you can be with your computer forever? Regardless, now we switch to Roxy's point of view and we see that she feels rather inferior. Being with him has significantly humbled her. Pushing forward, we get told that in this world you have a birthday every 5 years. And Rudy admits that he actually enjoys the party, something he says he hasn't had since he became a recluse. Which is kind of sad to think about it from my point of view because, I mean, think about it, his family never really threw him birthdays, probably thinking he didn't want any, but here he is having a good time. After a happy celebration with his family and Roxy, found out that Roxy is ready to give Rudy his final exam. However, for that he has to go outside, further than he's ever gone before. He, terrified, starts recalling the worst moments of his prior life. He recalls the nickname Limp Dick, which everybody started calling him at school. He also remembers his older brother and father telling him to keep his chin up and be brave, something that only pissed him off more. It is very easy to tell someone to be better, and it is very difficult to truly be there for someone. As a grown man, there are many things that are expected of you. To be pampered like a child is shamed upon. When a grown man is having a hard time, simply most of the time people will tell him to man up, and emotional distress are very, very ignored nowadays. Even as a teenager, all Rudius was told was to keep his chin up. However, it is partially Rudy's fault. I mean, even here now, Paul tries to lift him up slowly and carefully. He runs away. Rudy is not one to face his weaknesses and overcome them, at least not by himself. He needs a little push. When it looks like he's going to refuse to go out no matter what, Roxy catches him by surprise. Unable to dodge, he ends up on top of the horse. They start going outside slowly. His memories of the outside coming back into his head. He starts pleading with his master to please turn back, closes his eyes and braces for the hell he is about to be led into. Then he slowly opens them and notices the people around him. People are staring at him. He begins to feel defeated. He is back at the worst place he could possibly imagine, outside, being stared at by people. He hangs his head down low in shame. Then somebody greets Roxy. Everyone starts greeting Roxy. Nobody was ever looking at Rudius. Remember those Superb I talked about earlier, the demons? Roxy is regularly mistaken for one of them. This is why his parents were surprised at him. It may also be why she was slightly rude, calling them idiots for thinking her head was green instead of blue. Like Rudy in his prior life, Roxy also had to fight a lot of prejudice here. Rather than let that define her, she made herself a pillar of the community. To me, Roxy is a lot like past Rudius. She can be a bit of a pervert, come off as a bit of a jerk, and she probably had many people who looked at her weird. But regardless of all that, she showed Rudy that he can still be a respectable member of society. You don't have to be perfect to be loved. Rudy takes his final exam and passes it with flying flying colors. Then Roxy leaves, saying that she wants to further her magical training. She refuses to settle, giving Rudy as a meaningful necklace from her original village. As Roxy gets further and further away, Rudy, the person who had been terrified of going outside for 20 plus years, runs out after her and thanks her for everything. He did something no one had been able to do in 20 plus years. She cured him. She saved his life. Not for this moment, who knows how Rudy's life would have gone. Maybe his life would have been the same as before. Regardless, he stole some of her panties. The maid found them, and yeah, we'll pick up on that next episode. This episode took me a bit longer to get out because I was waiting for my new microphone, and I went out on vacation, and a lot of stuff happened. Next episode will be out quicker, hopefully. Comment down below what you thought of this. Any feedback, all feedback is welcome. If you have a quick moment, like the video. Subscribe so you can see all my future Mushoku Tensei and other anime related content. And follow me on twitch.tv/liveperformer where I can stream games soon. I will, this time. I promise. Thank you. And once again, thank you for making it all the way through to the end.